Why hello you amazing beautiful people, and welcome back to another solo leveling cut content reaction video. So we already checked out part 7, well episode 7, part 1, part 2, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. We already checked out episode 7 part 1, but we haven't checked out episode 7 part 2, and that was literally just released. There was so much information that AniNews couldn't contain it all in just one episode. We've got 40 minutes of cut content to enjoy, so let's do it. Press that like button, press that subscribe button. We need to get another plaque like that one on that wall, and the only way we can do that is with all of you. Press that freaking subscribe button, and let's jump into my first time ever reaction to Solo Leveling Season 2 Episode 7 Part 2 Cut Content.
Sung's return to the tower dungeon was preceded by a lot. There was a momentary truce between Beck and Choi. Beck would make a discovery beyond what we saw in the anime. Sung would find himself in debt hours after becoming an S rank. Then the ant here signifies a lot more trouble than you might think.
Oh! Do you know what? It's going to be interesting watching this now we've seen episode 8 to see what like sort of preludes there's going to be. By the way, episode 8, whoa! Yeah, also shout out AniNews. I forgot to say at the beginning of the video, this is AniNews' video. Shout out AniNews, link to their channels in the description. I absolutely love their videos.
Also an additional reason for Sung's night watch, as well as other smaller details adding to the story.
Watch.
So, as promised, here's part 2 to everything the anime left out from season 2, episode 7.
That's something that
all
you're
the
just
differences between the anime, manga, and web novel.
I wonder if that night watch will ever be used, or if it's just something that you know is there.
Now, to pick things up from where we left them, Sung's bout with the press had actually been interrupted by a call from Jinnah. You'd think he wouldn't even notice here, but because he was concerned it might be an emergency, Sung answered right in front of everyone.
Oh!
It turns out it was just Jinnah being curious as to what was going on. Reporters would then bombard Sung with question after question, leading him to get so annoyed that he was genuinely considering summoning shadows to clear a path for him. He believed Tanker Tusk might be the most appropriate. Now, it was in the anime that Beck would offer to help Sung get away from here, but what we didn't see was the underlying reason for that offer. It wasn't just Beck offering out of the goodness of his heart, but rather a clever plan developed between him and Choi. You see, since it wasn't just them that were aware of Sung's power anymore, both knew it was only a matter of time before the other S-rank guildmasters would come rushing in trying to recruit Sung themselves.
Have we only met 3 of these guilds yet? I'm not 100% sure. And we've met the 2 strongest ones, right? These 2 guys. So the other 2 that we haven't met, because we've had the Tiger one. Yeah, or am I just misremembering something here? Also, it felt kind of obvious in the anime that it wasn't just them being friendly. Like, even Beck. Like, when Beck said, I can get you out of here, I didn't for once think, like, even though Beck's a nice guy, I didn't think he was just being friendly. I assume that there's some ulterior motive underneath it. You know, they want him in their guild. That's not really a secret. And as we've mentioned, even though they don't know this, getting Jinwoo in your guild wouldn't mean getting a new S rank. It would mean getting multiple new S ranks in your guild because of his shadows.
Being the case, in order to avoid more competition and limit Sung only to themselves, Beck and Choi agreed to a truce of sorts. They decided they would pool their resources together, escort Sung back home privately, then use said time to discuss offers with him. At least that way, it would keep the competition between the 2 of them. The reason either still believed they even had a chance to begin with was because to them a guild would always be absolutely necessary for him. It didn't matter what abilities he had, because at the end of the day, he wouldn't be able to tackle high-ranking dungeons without one. So it's for that reason Choi and Beck believed if they played their cards right, at least one of them could acquire Sung.
Is that true? I assumed he could just do the dungeons on his own. Like, they already know he can clear a dungeon on his own, an A-rank dungeon, but is he not allowed to do that? You know, is there some reason he can't do that? Maybe it's financially. They have to buy them, don't they? And he doesn't have any money, or that much money. I never even thought about that.
That's when Beck would offer assistance, all with the approval of Choi behind him, promising to use their expertise to get Sung out of here. Sung could tell this wasn't an empty promise, but it was completely unnecessary given what we saw next. Now, if you're wondering how it was Beck was able to get an accurate read of Sung's power here, it was all because right as he was about to jump, Sung had released a good portion of the magical energy he'd been concealing. Though the moment was barely perceptible due to how brief it was, the incredible magic power Beck was exposed to caused him to activate his Eyes of the Beast ability instinctively. It was a special skill which allowed him to accurately read any person's power. He had done the same back at the Red Gate, and now his eyes were telling him Sung was stronger. So, where before Beck knew he could fight Sung, albeit at the cost of a limb or two, now Sung's power dwarfed him completely. His magic now was incomparably greater than his magic before. It was an observation which would lead him to the conclusion Sung could level up. This leads to a rather interesting...
And that's why he said that. Okay. So the anime doesn't really explain that part that well, but it doesn't need to. But it's nice knowing, one, what the eyes can do. It might have been explained in the anime and I missed it. And two, the leveling up conclusion, you know? Because if he can accurately see how strong he is, and then he sees him again and he's even stronger, every time Beck meets him, he's gonna be stronger, so it makes sense that Beck would draw that conclusion.
Interesting cutscene with Beck later, since with this new information that Sung had grown stronger, he was now eager to learn everything he could about him.
I don't blame him.
Being the case, Beck would lock himself into his office, then immediately start searching for everything he could on hunters who could grow stronger. It was the only thing he could do given his clues were limited. 3 hours would then be spent searching every resource available, including a special website only hunters of the highest rank had access to. As he expected though, not a single thing could be found on what he was looking for. It was a futile effort that led him to think maybe he was overreacting. Or maybe Sung just...
I asked this question before, and I got a bunch of answers from you guys in the comment section, it helped, but I'm going to ask it again a bit differently. You know the freaking, sorry, I was getting distracted. There was a neighbor I don't recognize. The book, like, you got the memoir and the web novel. If I wanted to read them, do I have to read both of them? Are they both, like, hand in hand?
Wasn't a hunter at all. With his existence defying every notion society had come to develop about hunters, Beck was starting to think perhaps Sung was just someone blessed by the gods. He truly had no idea what he was dealing with anymore. It was right as he was about to give up, though, that in a last-ditch effort, he would simply do the equivalent of Googling hunter level up ability. At first, nothing in particular came up, but after 5 more pages of scrolling, an insignificant forum post would catch Beck's eye here. It was an anonymous post on a public hunter forum, one that read like this. Now, for those who watched my cut content from Season 1, Episode 3, you'd recognize this as the post Sung made back when he first got his abilities.
Oh.
So, what does Beck do now that he's stumbled upon it? Well, he would first call On since he knew this was something huge, then have him cross-reference the date of the post with what Sung was doing
I
that
actually,
day.
for a second, thought it was someone else.
It only took a few moments for On to search Sung's file, after which he would reveal Sung had woken up from the hospital that day. It was news that confirmed a non-zero chance of Sung being the one who made this post. So, Beck then went to investigate Sung's file himself, examining his hunter history in its entirety. What he noticed was a very peculiar change starting immediately after the Double Dungeon incident. To Beck, this was nothing more than a vague memory, but seeing it now did remind him he was actually present that day. He may not have known who Sung was back then, but what he did know was that from that point on, Sung was completely different. Like, where before all Sung did was help out in the lowest rank association raids, to start freelancing and even...
I've only just realized how curious it was that he was, like, carrying the bags for the other guys, considering it's not too dissimilar to what he used to do. Even though he was, a hunter in the dungeons, he was still usually at the back, usually helping with the smaller stuff, right? So, yeah, actually, there's a parallel there with the last couple episodes,
clear
too.
Several C-rank gates after. Well, that clearly indicated something went to change him inside the Double Dungeon. It was a clear shift in hunter activity that implied this wasn't your typical reawakening. No. To Beck, this was a hunter who, in only a few months, grew from the E rank to the S rank. Still, there was no way to fully confirm whether this anonymous poster really was Sung, but
anonymous
if their words were to be believed
146.
and Sung's
Funny.
power grew the way the post described, then it was truly unfathomable how much stronger Sung could become. It was a revelation that led Beck to the conclusion recruiting Sung was impossible. He now finally understood why it was Sung was so disinterested with them. All it really came down to was a simple matter of why join a guild when you can easily create your own. I mean, with the powers Sung had, it really was only a matter of time before his guild would become the best. So that for Beck was a truly disheartening thought to dwell on.
it's not just that, but like technically, I wonder where his guild strength would be. Let's just say he hypothetically had one right now, you know? The only thing that he's lacking would be funds, which I don't feel like he's properly lacking. He's just not managing his current ones enough. Like, he can sell weapons and stuff like that. He has the abilities to create funds, albeit not on the same level that the guilds do, but he would only need to purchase one dungeon. You know, one good dungeon. If he could purchase one good dungeon, clear it himself, mine it, excavate it, sell all the stuff himself. If he could somehow do that, then plus he's got Jinhu. What's the name of his brother? His brother from another mother. What's the name of that guy? Because he can like he's probably got a lot of connections that can help him with like the selling of stuff. He'll be very valuable later on. All he needs to do is once. He makes that profit once, he can then make it again. That's all he needs to do, get that foot in the door. So I guess if he can make enough money from selling stuff, enough to buy a dungeon, then he'll be able to buy more, is what I'm trying to say. But money is definitely his main issue at the moment, because I'm curious as to his actual strength, especially now at episode 8 in the anime, because he has, including himself, 3 S ranks wandering around. You know, he's got Egress, he's got Tusk, and he's got himself. Tusk and Egress can be summoned multiple times. So theoretically he could have like 10 S ranks because they can come back, but they can't fight at the same time. But he also has other ones that are leveling up quite quickly, like Tank. You know, Tank is leveling up quickly. Tank will eventually be an S rank, you know? And I'm gathering there's going to be other people that are also going to be S ranks. Meaning that currently, if we just look at it on a base level, Jinwoo has a bunch of A ranks, 3 S ranks including himself, and a whole damn army of, like, how strong are those knights? Would you reckon B ranks? Surely he is either the strongest or one of the strongest guilds in Korea. And he's only going up. I also am curious to see how strong the strongest S rank is in the world, and how strong the strongest guild is in the world, because we've only seen the second strongest guild in Asia.
Such a matter quickly became an afterthought though, because when Beck started to consider the true impact of a hunter who could grow infinitely stronger, he knew it was just a matter of time before the entire world would be focused on him. Forget the impact on the global hunter community as a whole, Sung's existence was sure to change the world as he knew it. So it was for that reason that Beck knew he needed to talk to Sung more than ever now. The thing is, if he wouldn't even talk to him for such ludicrous offers, then it was likely he wouldn't talk to him for anything else. The hardest part was for sure going to be getting face to face with him. On still hadn't yet given up on recruiting Sung himself though, so there was a funny scene in the manhwa where he was camped outside his apartment. Now, I can understand why the anime decided not to include all this, but it really does make Beck's knowledge so much more impactful. Like, where the anime kind of disregards what's probably the biggest revelation in hunter society ever, the novel portrays what I think is an accurate reaction to it. The way it loops back to an event all the way from the beginning of the series too, serves to make this scene so much more interesting. It also highlights just how insightful Beck really is. In any case,
yeah, I kind of agree,
before we
especially
head
with
back
the
to the auction house that in the manhwa a panel would show Hwang
Season
Dong-soo's
1.
reaction to the news as well. He would see that Sung was still alive, and that would remind us the conflict with them is still ongoing. Now, the auction house contains one of the bigger portions of cut content from the episode, but it's also the least important. That being the case, rather than go through it detail by detail, I'm instead just gonna give you a more summarized version.
Oh, those helmets!
So, Sung would take a taxi straight to the auction house from the press conference, since clearing the tower dungeon was his #1 priority.
Whenever AniNews uses this OST that's playing right now in the background as like a backing soundtrack for his videos, always reminds me of the Mass Effect 2, or is it Mass Effect 3? Evacuation of Earth.
It's here the taxi driver could tell that Sung was a hunter, so just like any normal person dealing with a hunter, he was extra careful when it came to Sung's mood. He didn't want to get on Sung's bad side since there were many hunters whose personalities could easily
I like the
lead to
editing here,
incidents.
AniNews, nice.
Sung would just spend the duration of the ride on his phone, scrolling through social media to see his name was everywhere. It was pretty weird since this wasn't the same response when Cha got announced as an S rank 2 years ago. As it turns out, she was able to request that the association keep her details confidential.
Oh.
It was a privilege Sung could have asked for himself, but didn't end up doing since he didn't even know it was an option.
Oh.
That's why every reporter seemed to know all about him. They all had open access to his public hunter records. So, Sung would request for that confidentiality online, then call the auction house and prep them for the appraisal of an artifact they couldn't help but be suspicious of. In fact, if it hadn't been for Sung's newly announced S rank, any other hunter would have been laughed at and hung up on. So, Sung knew this was the exact moment he got reevaluated for. It was also those at the auction house would have to take him seriously.
That is literally what he wanted to be reevaluated
Even
for, yeah.
then, the appraisers still didn't believe him, because knowing what he knew about how artifacts were made, even the world's best forger using the best materials and putting their entire soul into it could at best...
I love the Dan Matchy usage of footage here.
...make an artifact amplifying power by 50%. Such were the limits given even the most ideal circumstances. Since Sung was a premium client who was sure to have business with them in the future though, the appraiser decided to continue with his request anyway.
Smart move, bro.
It didn't matter how impossible it was for such an artifact to exist, they needed to oblige since Sung was an S rank. Now, the whole appraisal process was actually rather extensive, but to keep it brief, there were two ways that they tested it. First, they would use a B rank mage hunter as a base, get a numerical reading of his power before the orb, then have him hold the orb and take his reading again. This was to verify the orb did what Sung said, and it did in fact boost the hunter's base reading by 100%. Numbers were one thing, but to actually show that boost in action was another. So, with many clients preferring to see what the artifact they're buying does, the second stage of the assessment involved recording a physical test.
That is curious, because the orb, you don't realize how powerful that orb is. The orb for a strong hunter, let's say you take the strongest hunter in the world right now, we'll remove Jimu from the equation, and you give them that orb is fucking deadly.
The hunter would
Don't you necessarily make two of that hunter
without the orb, then maintain the spell, pick up the orb, and display the results after. For this case in particular, the hunter had to cancel his spell almost immediately because to continue this enhanced blizzard would have frozen the entire room instantly. It had once again proven this was in fact the invaluable artifact Sung said it was. The orb actually had so much power that the moment the appraiser laid his hands on it, for the first time ever he wanted to try and steal it. Had it not been an S-rank hunter providing it to him, then there was a good chance he actually might have tried to.
The necklace looks like something from Black Panther, the one in the bottom. Actually does.
In any case, the appraiser was eager to at least proceed with the sale since the 5% commission on it was sure to make him and the others rich. Sung first asked to peruse the artifacts they had to buy though, since he wanted to make sure that they had what he needed. As it turns out, the type he was looking for was actually one of the most common out there. He just couldn't find it online due to how expensive they were. So in the end, Sung would be able to buy the artifacts without needing to sell anything. He just needed to use his own daggers as collateral, then take out a small loan from the auction house. It's pretty funny since Sung hasn't even been an S rank for an entire day, yet somehow he's already found himself in debt. It's back home that Sung would find reports.
Amazing how fucking that's literally how it works, by the way. That's literally how it works. Everyone I know who gets money gets debt. And it's nuts how much it's mismanaged, you know? Because everybody thinks that in the future the money is still going to be there. They can sort it out later down the line, you know? You got to spend money to make money, blah, 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 blah. I'll tell you right now what I tell people all the time. And I told my brother this, and I tell people this all the time. First, if you're ever going to get married, don't get a loan out for your wedding. Just save up for your wedding, okay? Don't do that. Trust me. Next, don't spend money you don't have. It's simple. Don't spend money you don't have. Save up for things. Save up for things. It's 100% more valuable than taking out loans. And I know some people are going to disagree with me because it doesn't matter what I say online. People always disagree with me. But that is my opinion based on my experiences. If I could go back and talk to myself, that's what I'd say. I'd say, look, don't take out a loan, save up for things, you know, just have some patience and get them in the future. It's like, you just trust me. Because you'll be surprised how much it builds up.
Orders everywhere, but Jenna would prevent him from doing anything about it. As much as he wanted to have them leave, Jenna wouldn't allow it since Sung was already getting hate online.
Well, that feels like some sister leveling shit right there.
The way Sung disregarded the reporters at the first press conference, and now he was getting heat for being a bit arrogant.
He does come across pretty arrogant.
This wasn't going to last for much longer, since as soon as Sung's request for confidentiality was processed, the reporters would get word to stay away from Sung. So really, this was nothing but a temporary problem. Fast forward to when Sung is setting up the night watch, and this would actually be something he did earlier on in the novel.
Oh.
It was after he'd just met with the chairman that Sung would come home to find his neighborhood way too dark. It's then that he would remember a case of ongoing serial murders, some of which were happening nearby. Since the victims of those were all women, it was here that Sung decided he should set something up to protect Jin. She did frequent these roads late at night herself, so there was a good chance that she could become a target. Of course, he personally couldn't just sit around and guard her, so that's when Sung came up with the idea to have patrols. It was also he could keep Jenna safe from any potential serial killers. He also believed it was his way of giving back to the community. So, with a great sense of satisfaction, Sung couldn't help but smirk at the idea of providing S-rank defense services for free. If anyone found out that that was the case, then he was sure the value of his entire neighborhood would skyrocket. As for the soldiers protecting Jenna personally...
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it out there. I would probably want to live in that neighborhood as well. Like, shit. Imagine your neighbor is Batman, you know? It's like, ain't no one gonna mess with you. But then again, people mess with Batman all the time. Pros and cons.
They were strong enough to handle up to an A-rank hunter. So, unless the killer was a high-ranked hunter himself, Jenna was sure to be safe from pretty much everything. Now, there's two more important things I want to cover before getting to the tower dungeon, and the first is Mr. Yu's Eternal Slumber. This was a death sentence in more ways than one, since not only did the Eternal Slumber eventually put you into a coma-like state indefinitely, it also drained a person's life force away. Unless the afflicted was hooked up to one of these magic life support machines, the disease would without fail eventually kill them. So, it was before these machines had been discovered that the Eternal Slumber was 100% fatal. It probably still was, considering that not a single person had ever woken up from it. This would
How
lead
many
the
people
doctor
are
to make
in
the
the
absurd
Eternal
suggestion of never...
Do you reckon there's more to the Eternal Slumber than we've been told? I wonder what's going to happen if, or when, someone eventually wakes up from it. I wonder if it's as simple as just like a coma, or if there's more to it, you know? Seems like it's a big deal. I mean, when you think about solo leveling, it's one of the most prominent things in the actual anime. Even though it's not referenced as much, it's been there since episode 1, and it's the whole reason Jinwoo's doing anything he's doing. You know?
Seeing Jinho again, but that was a burden Mr. Yu wasn't willing to put on Jinho. As a father who cared deeply for his family, he would never want to impede his son's life that way. Plus, with more and more hunters being born every day, as well as mana becoming more commonplace in everyday appliances, Mr. Yu knew his exposure to magic was going to increase no matter what. So, with society moving forward and him being left behind, what this was simply natural selection. To Mr. Yu, it felt like he was being culled. Even so, that still wasn't enough to make him give up yet. As someone who was never the victim and never lost, this was simply another challenge for him to overcome. It was no different from any of the others in his life. Well, at least that's how he wanted to feel anyway. Now, the other important scene I wanted to cover was this right here involving the ant. This was a remote island off the coast of Japan, and these two were the only
Ant-Man. Yes.
two hunters on it. As a low D and E rank, their jobs weren't to fight in gates and clear them, but was instead to make the rounds, talk to the community, and find out if there was a gate. It was of the utmost importance to locate them as fast as possible. Should one remain hidden and lead to a dungeon break, then every resident of the island was sure to be killed from it. That being the case, both these hunters were well aware of what was at stake here. It's for that reason they would make their rounds every single day, talk to the residents to see if they saw anything, then use a manometer to determine if there were any changes in magical energy.
Is this like a common thing then in towns?
Found that hunters from the outside would have to be contacted,
you know,
after
like
which
kind
it
of
would
behavior.
take 3 days for them to get organized and get here. So, with 3 days being the time it took to get ready, that meant these two needed to find the gate within 3 days of its appearance. It was their responsibility as the only two hunters present. Well,
So they're the only two hunters present on that island. How curious, you know? Because that's very risky. What if they don't find the gate? Obviously, they take their job very seriously. They do it every single day. But what if they don't find the gate in time? And what if there's delays in getting people there? There could be another break. That could be Jeju Island 2.
It was up until this moment. To finally switch things over to the tower dungeon now, That's when the story starts to get back on pace again. Not too much was different, but there are a few details worth mentioning. Like, Sung was happy to be back at a place where he could cut loose without worry, but the difficulty was going to increase exponentially from here. His new quest filled him with excitement since with each of his other class skills being indispensable, there was no doubt that this new one would be too. In the manhwa, Tusk looked absolutely incredible, and his attack had killed enough high-ranking demons to level up Sung twice.
Oh,
so his stats were sitting pretty now at this.
Let's have a look at this. Let's pause this then. So we got his name. Okay, that's his name. Good. Level 81. Monarch of the Shadows. Conquer, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we know that, right? 24,000 hit points. I don't know what that means yet. Mana points, 5,000. Okay, strength. His intelligence is growing massively. You can tell he's probably pouring everything into that at this point, you know? What's AP? Oh, that's how available points. Okay, yeah, never mind. I always ask that because I always see it as a 0. I like that he like doesn't slow down. He diversifies quite a lot. Physical damage reduction 46%. All right, nice. What happens if there's 100? Does that grow? Passive skills unknown. Tenacity, advanced dagger techniques, active skills, speed, bloodlust, camouflage, the commander's touch, daggers toss, and critical attack. All right.
And with his intelligence almost at the 200 mark, that brought his MP to over 5,000 now. I know that may seem like a lot compared to what it was before, but with the way his skills were improving, Sung knew he'd need a whole lot more. Like, if he wanted to infinitely revive the number of soldiers he was expecting to have later on, 5,000 mana certainly wasn't going to cut it. Plus, with intelligence being the only way to improve his class skills, more mana was simply a byproduct of improving that. As he was now though, he was capable of extracting up to 820 shadows at any given time, but only allowed to store 155 of them.
Yeah, okay, alright, yeah. So, in a fight, he can obviously, bring... So, it'd be like if I was fighting an army of 1,000 soldiers and I had 100 on my side, every time I kill one of them, I can just bring it to my side, thus growing my army size, you know?
Current army consisted of 127. Unfortunately, the Orb of Avarice did nothing to improve those, so...
yeah, because the other thing is, he's been leveling up and fighting in the tower, and he can't take any of those souls from the tower, which I wonder why he can't do that. There must be a reason for it, you know? I wonder what that reason exactly is. So he's not able to build up his forces inside that tower. Even though he can level up, level up his forces, he can't build up those numbers. I do really hope he got the Wyvern, because it'd be so cool. They didn't show anything about it, and because he's in the tower, I don't think he did. But I like to believe he did. Somehow imagine him just flying around a dragon seems awesome.
That's why Sung felt it was better in Tusk's hands. Now,
yeah, makes sense.
Sung wasn't the only one leveling up here, as with each passing day, his soldiers grew stronger too. In fact, a Shadow-like tank had leveled up 10 times already. It and the others were leveling up faster than he was. Getting to floor 80 was pretty smooth sailing, but it's after that that things started to get a bit tricky. That's where I'm gonna end things off, so next episode I'm sure we'll get to cover the rest of the tower dungeon. That and, you know, the true best girl of solo leveling. So, let me know what you thought down in the comments, and if you liked the video then leave a like and consider subscribing.
Alright, bro's teasing already. Bro is teasing already. You can't be doing that, alright? You can't be doing that! This is episode 7 part 2, dude! You can't be doing that! That's alright. For anyone who hasn't seen episode 8 and is an anime-only viewer, they're just going to be confused at that ending. That's not really going to spoil anything, so be like, what the fuck is he talking about? Funny. I am hopeful for a future where a demon is just kicking about with Jinwoo. I'm not going to talk about it too much, because I don't know what everyone's seen watching this video, and again, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll stick to episode 7 as much as I can. I'm going to do a little stretch while I do that, though. So, again, shout out AniNews. Go subscribe to AniNews' channel. Has AniNews, how close is AniNews to 700 these days? 674. Fucking hell, man. AniNews is very much like Jinwoo. Levels up so damn quickly. I'm going to be at 700, I reckon, before, around the end of Solo Leveling Season 2, man. Amazing. Okay. So, first, Beck. Beck's information is definitely the one that is the most intriguing out of everybody, you know? The fact that we have Beck's ability, not really gone into too much detail, but showcasing that he's literally seeing Jinwoo level up, and knows this. And has also now given up on the idea of being able to recruit him because he knows it's pretty much impossible. That feels like quite important information. Obviously, I would say I'm very good at looking at it objectively. Because if I'm looking at it all as like a big jumbled mess, then I would easily be on the outside going, oh, that's information they really should have included in the anime. But I don't look at it like that. I look at it as an anime-only viewer, and then I have the extra information. And I take that extra information, I just put it over here. And then I think about how watching it as an anime-only viewer makes me feel. And the Beck information isn't needed. It's just not. It's cool, and it would have been cool, but it's not needed. You know, I'm still enjoying the anime. I feel like where the anime is going is great. And all that extra information, even though I think some of it's cool, and even though if I knew it prior, I'd want it in there. As an anime-only viewer who doesn't know any of this prior and is just going along with the flow, it's not needed. I can separate my enjoyment of the two and understand, like, how much I'm loving the episodes and what I feel like is needed. And again, so far, there hasn't been a single moment in Solo Leveling where I felt like, ah, man, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? You know, I haven't felt like that watching the anime at all. I only think about those questions when I watch these ones, so, like I said, I'm separating the two. I feel like the Beck stuff is very, 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 like, thought-inducing, you know? How he is going to be with Jinwoo going forward is probably one of the most fascinating things about character interactions, I would say, you know? Big time. And then we have how the other guilds are going to be. We have Jeju Island coming up. And that is something I've been so excited for since they showed it to us in episode 1. Mainly because my comment section just screams at me how excited they are, so I'm excited. Even like I don't know anything about it other than it's going to be an island full of ants, and after the last episode and how devastating one can be, I'm pretty excited. And then we have the reason behind the Shadow Army going around to protect people, which I think is kind of cool. So there's actually a lot. There's actually a lot going on now. Like, so much. We have the money, the idea of the dungeons. We have the ants. We have the leveling up. We got the new characters. There is, the leveling up of the soldiers as well and the forces. And then there's obviously some other stuff which we'll have to wait till episode 8 to go into, which I do really want to talk about now regarding the system, but we're going to wait. But yeah, AniNews once again crushing it with their video. Make sure you go check out their channel, and don't forget to check out this channel. Like the video to support it, and subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already. It really helps these channels, so please press that subscribe button. I'd love to one day have another plaque on that wall, and the only way I can do that is with your help. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome day, and as always, my friends, you will see me in the next video.